In this video I'm going to be talking about and playing the track Buckaroo by Buck Owens and the Buckaroos. And this is, I think, one of the great guitar instrumentals of all time. It's right up there with those other great guitar instrumentals like, and now I'm not going to be able to think of any, like Rumble or Mizzaloo, Eruption, things like that. So why don't you let me know what your favourite guitar instrumentals are. You can drop that in the comments. Guys, isn't that what YouTubers are supposed to say? Yeah, drop that in the comments. Engage with my content. Anyway, let me play through this track and then I'll talk about how to play it. So this one is from 1965 and features the guitar playing of the great Don Rich, who's one of my favourite country guitar players. I have looked at a little bit of his playing previously on this channel. I looked at the track The Happy-Go-Lucky Guitar, which is a bit more obscure than this track, but I thought I'd look at Buckaroo today, which is his most well-known track. And I'm not averse to looking at classics on this channel from time to time. I know I often look at some quite obscure stuff, but sometimes it's good to look at some well-known stuff and see if I can cast some new light on it. I think actually I first came across this track as a cover by the Byrds, and Clarence White from the Byrds used to play this track quite regularly live with the Byrds, and it features on one of their live records. I can't remember which one, but his version is amazing, and maybe I'll look at that one day, but I'm going to need a B-Bender Telecaster before I can attempt that, and even then I don't think I'll be able to play that very well. But the original Buckaroo, which I'm focusing on in this video, is a lot more learnable and approachable, so that's what I'm going to be focusing on in this video. So let's get started. This is one of those pieces where if you learn the main riff, you've got about 80% of the track, so let's begin with that. And this track is in the key of D, and it's quite simple harmonically. It's just based around the 1, 4 and 5 chords in the key of D. So D is obviously the 1 chord, got G is the 4 chord, and A is the 5 chord, and we just got some simple melodic riffs that are based on those chord sounds. So we're starting with the main riff, the opening riff. And you can see and you can hear that it's based around that D chord shape. It's really based around a D triad that we're just embellishing. So this is something that I've spoken about recently on this channel, how you can take triad sounds and then add in extra notes. So if you've got this D triad here, you've got the root note here, which is D, you've got the 3rd and the 5th, so it's a second inversion triad, and then we've got other notes around that triad that you can add in. So got an E note here, which is the 2nd, and this note here is the 4th, that's a G, so giving you that sus4 sound. So those are the kind of things that you can think about when you're playing this riff if you really want to understand what's going on. But it starts like this. So we've got a few different fingering options here, so you don't want to just finger your D chord as you normally do. I've chosen to use my first finger and just flatten that down across the top 3 strings, and I've got my second finger down on this D note, and then I've got my little finger free to add in this E note here as well. So we're going to start with just open D and then the 3rd string, and then playing the 2nd string I'm hammering on from D to E. So you need a strong pinky here, just slamming it down on that E. Then we're on to the top string, F sharp, G, F sharp, and then coming down E to D. So that's the way that I'm doing it. You've got some choices here. You want to let some of those notes ring together, so you can let those first few notes all kind of overlap and ring together. And then I'm bringing my second finger away and coming over to the top string to play that G. And you could, if you wanted to, bring that first finger over and not do that bar. But then you don't get the notes ringing together in quite the same way. Another option is also kind of leaving your little finger down and letting those top notes ring together. I think you can just about hear that on occasion in the original piece. But that's the way that I'm doing it. You've also got some choices when it comes to your right hand approach to this. So I'm just using the pick for this, but if you wanted to, you could try some country style hybrid pick and fingers stuff. That would work very well too. That kind of approach to things. I'm not sure exactly how Don Rich plays this particular bit. There is one video that I found of him playing this tune. It's not absolutely clear from that video. It's quite kind of grainy footage, but it looks like on this riff he's just using the pick. You know, whether he did that on the record or not, who knows. Anyway, that's the opening riff. Now the next bit's easy. We're just going to move that riff so it conforms to the G sound or the 4 chord, and we're just going to slide it up the neck. So if this is a D triad here, we've got a G triad up here. I'm going to finger that in the same way with the bar with my first finger. And the picking is exactly the same. We've still got this open D string droning away, because that open D is in common between both of the chords. It's the root of the D chord, and it's the 5th of the G chord, so it works for both. So we've got the D riff up to the G riff. Then we're back down to the D riff again, and then we're heading to the 5 chord, which is an A, or I'm playing an A7 here, so this version of an A7. So I've got my second finger down at the 2nd fret on the D, and my 3rd finger is down at the 2nd fret on the B string. And this is where we've got a bit of hybrid chicken picking kind of stuff going on. So what I'm doing here is I'm using my pick on the 5th string, and then I'm using my middle finger and ring finger to play on the 2nd and 3rd strings. We've got a little melody happening on the B string, and we're achieving that by just lifting up the 3rd finger, 2 open strings there, and then we're going up to this D note here, creates that A7 sus4 sound. You can just move your 3rd finger along, or you can use your pinky there if you want to. So that's our A7 riff, and that recurs several times in the course of the track. Then we start repeating. We've got the D riff once again, and the G riff, then back to D, but we've got a little variation on the initial riff. So got the hammer on from D to E, onto the top string, F sharp, G, pull off to F sharp. And then I'm playing a D there. It's sometimes a D, sometimes it might be an E, I think. It's kind of quite quiet, that note, but I'm going to play a D. And then we're back to the 5 chord. That's very similar to what we've had before, that chicken picking kind of thing. And then we've got a series of chords. We've got 3-note chords here. So we've got a D, or really it's a D power chord. We're just playing the 2nd, 3rd and 4th strings. Then a G chord, it's just a G triad, so open 2nd, 3rd and 4th strings. And then that same A7 chord shape, but I'm not playing the 5th string here. So playing all of those with pick and 2 fingers. Then a bit more of that A7 stuff. And then the same kind of triple stop chord shapes. So that's the main section of the song. Why don't I put all of that together for you? We've just got a few bass notes to take us round again. So just A, B, C sharp, and back into the main riff. So there's one other main part to this track. I'm just going to call it the B section. And we come out of the main riff. And then instead of going to the A7, we go to the D. And that leads into the next part of the song. So we've got just a descending bass line. It's coming down to the A chord, and it's really just our main riff transposed to A. Exactly the same idea. I've just got my first finger flat on the 2nd, 3rd and 4th strings. Just adding in those embellishments to the A triad with my 3rd finger and 2nd finger. Then back to D. It's that same riff as before. Then we've got this. So we've got an E minor chord here, just an open E minor chord, and we're just picking out some notes from that chord. And then we're back to the A7. If I put all of that together, that's about it as far as the actual guitar parts go. But there is a steel guitar solo that you can hear on the original recording. And what I did at the start of this video is I attempted to translate that onto a regular guitar, so you can kind of approximate what's going on in the steel guitar. So I think some of the licks just don't want to fall that naturally on a regular guitar, but you can just about make something work that sounds acceptable, I think. So let me talk you through what I was doing there. Now, I started off with this lick. So it's a lick that fits the D chord, so it's kind of up the D major scale. I'm bending an E up to an F sharp, and I'm holding this G note at the 3rd fret on the top string. A nice kind of country sound there. You've got that dissonant kind of minor 2nd sound. And then coming down the pentatonic scale. So that fits the D chord. Then I'm just doing the same thing on the G chord. So we've got our G root note here. exactly the same lick, and then really just the same D lick, just a slight variation in the articulation and the rhythm there, and then so I've got this C sharp here, something like that. You can bend that note if you want, and then it's the same lick as before, but this time we're playing it over the A, and then it really just repeats. And then the last phrase, so all based around that same bending idea. And then we're back into the next section of the track. So that's what I was doing in the solo section. Some of those licks are quite tricky, particularly to get the tuning correct on some of those licks. I don't always manage it myself. I probably need to get myself a B bender. I think that would probably make this kind of thing a little bit easier, so maybe I'll look into that. But that's about it for this track. Oh, there's just the ending chord, which I was playing like this, so kind of a D6-9 chord. So I've got the 9th fret on the D and G, and 10th fret on the B and high E. Hold down a D root note there if you want to. The gear that I'm using today, and I've got my usual country setup, got my Telecaster of course, which is just an essential part of the Buck Owens sound, or just of the country sound generally. So this is a 52 reissue Telecaster. I had this guitar a long time, it just seems to be getting better with age, this one. And then I'm going into my Fender Deluxe, which again is a classic country amp. I'm going into the bright channel of that amp, which seems to work for this kind of thing where you want maximum country twang, and I'm just using one pedal, which is my MXR Dynacomp, and I do like a bit of compression on country sounds. I'm not sure there's much compression on the original recording, but it's just the sound that I like, so that's what I'm going with today. So let me give you some sounds. This is the guitar going straight into the amp. Add a bit of compression. So compression adds a little bit of sustain, it just seems to knit everything together. Also just seems to tame that quite harsh top end as well. Usually I dial back that top end, I wouldn't have quite as much as that, but for country stuff you do want a bit of bite and twang, and the compression just seems to stop that getting too out of control and too kind of ice picky. That's it for today. I hope that some of you will enjoy learning to play this one. A detailed tab is going to be up on my Patreon page along with my backing track. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time.